see you. Welcome to the podcast, Beth.
Welcome, Beth. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. I'm so excited to introduce you to everybody. Beth is a friend I made during the pandemic, so it's totally possible. If you feel like you can't make friends because we're all quote unquote stuck inside, that is not the case. Look at my friend Beth.
That's right.
We met on Hemp Huntress.
Yeah, we have learned so much about each other virtually and just, working to make that connection. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Making friends is just showing up and connecting and all of that. And also finding the right folks to be like, hey, you want to have a Zoom sometime?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So Beth, I always like to start business in the front. And will you tell us about Hoi Polloi and all of your ventures and things that you have available in the world?
Absolutely. Like a few crazy folks out there, I started a new business in the pandemic. And actually what I really did was I started sharing my frustration, my goals, my dreams, my real wants, desires throughout the pandemic, like many of us did. And that's really how we even got to know each other, was these virtual sessions and, for the most part, hanging with other women. And as I started sharing what I wanted to do, one of the hurdles that comes up is monetizing our knowledge. And as women, monetizing our knowledge, there's a whole slew of hurdles within the world and within ourselves, which is why self-care is so important. And you and I have talked, and you've helped me with go to the beach. That's my self-care, and it helps me think. So
I'm always so proud of you, by the way, every time you go to the beach. I'm just like, it's the simplest things that like when I'm talking to someone, I can just hear it. I'm like, but you love that. So do that thing more.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm working too much. I just don't have time. And yeah. And you always have time for self-care, even when it feels like you don't. And I've learned that listening to you and some other wonderful people in my life. So, and that really did lead to being honest about my hurdles of, hey, I'm this successful, disruptive capitalist in the industry for about 2 years. And then I have to start another business. And working with women, I really tackled my hurdles. And when I started sharing what I really wanted to do, which is help people, I want to share my knowledge. I want to help people. And I believe in the American dream. I believe you can work and do stuff with purpose and still pay the bills.
Yes.
Not saying it's easy, but it is possible. And the more we do it, the more it will become possible, the more we can share that. And so Hoi Polloi means the people. It's a Greek word that proletariat originally meant the riffraff. And so when Heather, our creative conjurer, was taking us through our branding process, and it just hit. I mean, we were all considered riffraff. We've still got over 40,000 of our Black brothers in prison that are considered riffraff to this day, while many people make a lot of money. Or myself, I am in the industry and I'm making money in an industry while other people sit in prison. I do not forget that. And that's why we want to help the people and have the industry with the people. So how do you do that when there's, states now with $25,000 license fees and these consultancies that are popping up saying, hey, pay us 25 grand and we'll teach you how to do your business. We'll tell you how to do your business. We're taking a whole different approach. We are offering advisement based on actual experience in the industry. And we are being very transparent with our 90-day process. We do offer a la carte services, but we really encourage people to look at working through a 90-day process with us. Starts with a concept review with me. We really get, down and dirty, so to speak, of what do you really want to do? And is it feasible? How are we going to do that? Then we kick into, okay, what's your budget realistically? And when I say budget, again, we're talking hoi polloi. So we're very transparent. You go to our site, you're going to see we offer 90-day packages that start at $500 a month, about $1,000 a month, and $1,500 a month. And we'll develop them with you what you need and get you to a point that we both agree is your goal for that 90-day process. And the real key, very, 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 very important, is collaboration. We cannot stress enough that we are a collaborative advisement group. We're not going to tell you what to do. We're going to listen, work with you, and advise. And that's really what it's about in a nutshell. Of course, there's a lot to that. There's, we can get into all the fun stuff of CRMs to websites, but the bottom line is what you need, what you want, we're going to help you get there in a 90-day affordable process, budgeting, all that. And that's just really want to help people avoid a lot of the things that we went through. Also just sharing some basic knowledge with our legacy growers that are afraid to go legit, and really guide I really want legacy growers to know, and legacy folks to know, they can reach out to us, be honest with us, and we'll get you your LLC, we'll get you your bank account, we'll get you into the game and keep you going. As well as we invite Gen Z, millennials. We are Gen Xers, but we are shameless about wanting to support the next generation in this industry. So we just, the people. If you're considered riffraff in any way for any reason, and you want to start a small business in hemp, cannabis, or psilocybin, we're here for you. So I've been gabbing, but that's really, that's a long elevator pitch, but we're trying to be unique and helpful, and at the same time almost revolutionary, in that we want the people to win. We want mom and pop, mom and mom, pop and pop, or whoever, to own their own businesses, own their own land, intergenerational wealth, the whole gamut. It can be done.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so first of all, it's not too much gabbing. It is a podcast. Second of all, long elevator pitch is exactly what I mean when I say tell me business in the front.
All right.
And also, just like, there's so much possibility here. Like, and it's not almost revolutionary. It is truly revolutionary when you're putting power in the people's hands. Mm-hmm. And to me, my way of putting power in the people's hands is to really just let them know your power is in your mind. Your freedom comes in your mind first. And that, and setting people free one by one is the most revolutionary act you can do. And getting money in the hands of people within an economy right now where there's so much wealth hoarding, and where the government is really, I cannot believe that any conscionable government that is legalizing or any level of drug use when people are in prison for it. I love that you talk about that up top. And then just creating financial barriers instead of creating equity around who can grow. It is wild to me, and it makes me so angry. And I'm so grateful for people like you who see a need and go in there. And your rates for consultancy and coaching, like, I'll say I am truly a product of coaching. Like, I was always a great Bevan, but I was never being my greatest, because you need a lot of help. Like, you're always too close to your own trees to see the forest. And you need that bird's eye perspective from people who have gone before you. And I'm so excited. I'm excited about people who just like randomly have land in Oklahoma who want to grow hemp, right? Who can come to you and like, they don't even know where to start, but like can create something sustainable that might actually retire them when they didn't have like access to that, right? And figuring out equitable ways of like, people, because if people pay you, then you are able to then extend that to other folks who maybe can't pay as much, who are, coming out of prison and like, deserve to be set up in a way where they can make money. Like I just love what you do. I think you're an incredible revolutionary, and I'm glad to be in the fight with you to
Thank you. Well, it takes all of us. And I think now is a time there's a really, really amazing opportunity with a plant-based, agricultural, tech-based industry, right? You have the industrial revolution everyone talks about. Well, I would love for, 2, 3 generations from now to talk about the plant-based agricultural revolution, where farmers got to grow not Monsanto seed, they got to grow their own seed. They got to grow their own, their own plants. And that instead of chemicals and pharmaceuticals, I love telling people I am just turned 52. I take 0 pharmaceuticals, 0.
That's fantastic. Not even
now, my endocannabinoid system, I study and learn as much as I can, and incorporate CBD, CBN, THC in a very more thoughtful manner than I did in my 20s. Understanding that system, right? I mean, hey, I own it. I had a great time in my 20s. I wasn't worried about health. I was worried about having a good time. But when you hit 50, hey, this ache and pain is here. Do I want to take a pill? No, because I've seen my parents, my grandparents, we've seen that. I still see it, what my grandmother goes through. No, I'm going to look at a CBD topical. I'm going to look at CBD. I'm going to work with plant medicine and ease those aches and pains naturally. That in itself right there is revolution.
Yeah.
I mean, everything we do with this plant automatically disrupts a system designed to make us sick and then charge us. It disrupts a system designed to make us work for them, because we're going to work for ourselves and each other. Every time you do something genuinely with this plant in any way, you are really disrupting the system. And it's a good thing. I'm okay with that. I really am.
Yeah. And also, like, I want to expand your potential client base, like, just so people understand, like, it's not just about like, oh, I want to sell something that has cannabis in it, so I need someone to help me navigate. If also, like, I mean, I work quote unquote in the cannabis industry because I teach at cannabis events. So it's not even like you have to be selling cannabis to be part of it. You can also be a coach who teaches people how to use cannabis, or really you can be one of the people who studies lots of plant medicines and go to hoi polloi to figure out how to I mean, honestly, just figuring out how to monetize information age businesses, knowledge-based businesses, is a really hard thing that I have studied a lot, and it's so much helpful. It's much easier when you have help and you have someone like just giving you a little bit of a path to follow or a strategy. Yeah.
And even, we have this area we came up with called Get Unstuck, because for some of us in Oregon, Colorado, Washington, some of the states that have been around, there's points in business, traditional and in ours, that you hit that you're stuck and you need a third party perspective. As an example, I'm in the middle of working with a management mentor / training program for dispensaries. Just, we have dispensaries here in the Northwest that, having been in management for decades, there's no training, there's no support in that area. And when a dispensary reached out, I was like, sure, let's do this. Let's create really strong management bases and train folks so that we can, again, we stay in this industry, not, oh, we're going to bring in, national corporation, blah, 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 to run this. No, each dispensary has its own culture, its own personality, and needs its own management training. And that's what hoi polloi really brings to, is listening to you, because culture is important.
Yeah.
There are processes, but culture and what you want to get across and the reason you're getting up every day needs to be incorporated into that business plan. It really does.
Yeah. And culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you don't have a good culture, like, everything goes downhill. And
I love that saying. It's so true. So true.
And it's like, and I mean, just think about, like, anytime you've been in like a toxic work environment, do you want to go to your work or not? Like, I met this woman at Goodwill the other day who she's like, this is the best job I've ever had. And I'm like, tell me more. And she's like, I was like, is it what you're doing or is it the people? And she said, oh, it's the people. She's like, the people here are fun and great, and we work together. It's collaborative. And I was like, that's culture. It's culture working its way up at a Goodwill. Like, it's any place lives or dies by like how you create an environment. And most people who have the gumption to start a thing aren't actually necessarily the best people or like understand anything about leadership or management. So it's really helpful to have folks in your corner teaching you like, hey, maybe you should read How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like, which is like, it's such a weird name for a book because it really, I mean, if you're a good person, you should be influencing people, I think. In a world like this, there's so many nasty, terrible, mean people who are influencing people. Like maybe the good people need to have a shot. But also, like, I think that book is better at like how to love on people and connect with people and motivate people without being a dick. And
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's look, I am going to own it. That is one of the things that's been great over the last, or getting into this industry in the last couple of years. I have a pretty darn successful traditional corporate career. Well, those of us that understand the corporate world know that for me to be successful meant that this woman was a ball buster, right? To win in that world, you play by their rules. And what I am hoping to do, or what I try and do now, is fine. You're in my world now, and these are my rules. And it's called kindness, integrity, truth. Mean what you say what you mean. None of this, yes, I'm amazing and I can do anything. All that bravado and that, I still see it everywhere of, we can turn your grow into a $10 million operation. Really? No. It's like all this stuff. And now we have a chance. And it's so ironic because I'm thinking about it, it's a chance, and it's been through virtual. I mean, we're now going to have more human contact, knock on wood, but a lot of this shift happened in a virtual realm. And as we're coming out of that virtual realm, I see those traditional, I thought of it the other day, those traditional people that plant money to grow money. And then there's those of us that plant seeds to grow plants, to grow a future. And I see those people that plant, use paper to make money. They don't get what we're doing. They're really confused. And I watch them lose money, and it makes me smile because they just don't get that it's a human interaction, collaboration. I don't know, when you're working with a plant that can heal, feed, clothe, shelter, fix soil, zero carbon. I don't know. Your whole kind of perspective changes about what you're doing.
Yeah. And there's just so much. I mean, this plant is so good and it has so much good to offer. I've talked about this before, but I really think it's part of the divine feminine rising. Because that's, I mean, we're smoking the female plant, right?
Yes.
And it's softening. It's a thing that kind of takes a lot of the hostility that we feel from hypermasculinity and toxic masculinity. It like softens it. And and I think it's part of the age of Aquarius, honestly, and part of the future. And it's kind of rad because actually in the process of being friends with you and like learning more about hemp, I've always had on my heart to have a clothing line. And now it's like totally on my heart for it to be a hemp clothing line. Like, you know what I mean? And like fabrics and made in the USA. Like, I'm like, oh, Beth can handle all of this for me when it's time for me to actually have it. I'm not trying to have another business right now, but
no, but it's great. And it'll, and that, you follow that thought process through, like a concept, hemp clothing, and I always kind of go to the big picture, but that ends up being revolutionary because then we're not buying clothing as much, which is a good thing.
It is a good thing.
A hemp pair of jeans will last you your life. A hemp shirt, even a cotton hemp shirt blend, is going to last a lot longer. So anyway, we're, just again, moving in that direction, which is kind of, moving back to the 1930s before we went off on that racist, greedy rant, but also combining the tech and stuff of 2021 and the new generations. I don't know. I guess I know we're in a shift, but I just think the future is pretty darn bright. I think we just got to keep working together to get there. I mean, again, not easy. But if we keep doing this and we keep collaborating and the right people keep working together and building that circle, I really do see things changing a lot.
this is such a breath of fresh air. There's so few people who have a true optimism.
Oh no, definitely. I've been an idealist too long. I can't help it.
It's great. It's good. It's my position is to either be totally like sad and think nothing's happening, or to be like hopeful, because that's what keeps me moving. So I choose hope. And I choose it every day, and I choose to believe that the best is still coming. I also, I believe that if we, like America, humanity, keep going in the direction that the masses are going, we're going to tank our only planet. Like, this is not planet A. This is the only one we get. So like people like you leading and like helping other people. I mean, this is the coolest part about a business like this, is that you are exponentially increasing your impact on the planet, because every individual and business that you help actually helps the planet. So it's just like, and then they're going to help people who help people. And that's how we turn this disaster ship around.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, I was thinking about like we're one of the companies that I promote, and we're hoping to work more with St. Bernie's CBD. Part of the thing we look at is not only the product, but they're worried about their packaging. They're worried about their eco, it is the whole deal when it comes to a company. These are, I like to think back, I can't remember who said it off the top of my head, but when they, corporations are people. Okay.
The Supreme Court said that, Beth. The Supreme Court said that.
Oh, okay. Well, great. But anyway, my point is, then let's be people. Then let's be human, right? If you're going to say that, then let's be human, act human.
Yeah, act human, like you're human that gives a shit about other people.
Exactly. And that what you do impacts other humans. Fine. We are human. Let's act it. Instead of, and I get it, I am a capitalist. And I like to say that so people know that there is a way to pay bills, be a capitalist, and still be socially responsible, which in turn disrupts things, which is beautiful. Disruption creates innovation. And I don't know, it's exciting, even if I'm still in the minority, but I don't think I am. I think we're going to see, as people get more and more involved, that, or at least what I'm seeing is people go, oh, wait a minute, I can do that. Or, and that's kind of what I like to do with our company is, a legacy personal meet me and be like, wait a minute, I can do what I'm doing, open a bank account, have an LLC, talk to a lawyer, and have an accountant. Yes, you can. And the banking part's not easy, but I work with a bank and I work with a credit union, and I can help people because yes, you can stop looking over your shoulder. Yeah. There is a way, or, and it is frustrating. That I had somebody that I'm helping and reminded me little things you don't think of. They started their LLC. Well, it's Blaze. Blaze started her LLC, and she goes, Beth, I'm getting these letters saying I owe money. And I'm like, I forgot. She's going to get all these scam letters, right? But she doesn't know that. She's not somebody that applies for LLCs all the time. She's starting her business, her dream. And now she's got this mail coming at her, telling her stuff like the federal government requires you to have posters, pay $100 a month to us, and being able to step in and go, okay, this is what this is what it means, don't do it. And offering her that support so that she goes, okay. and it's that kind of stuff. I want people to feel comfortable stepping into the business arena. And it is difficult. And there are liars, cheats, thieves, greedy people out there. There absolutely are. But there's a lot of us that enjoy, just doing what we do, right? Owning what we own and being able to be true to ourselves and pay the bills. And I put it that way because I'm not telling you I'm going to make you a millionaire. I'm going to tell you we're going to figure out a plan to be self-sufficient and pay your bills.
Yeah. My goal, I said this in the last podcast episode, but like my goal with wealth is to first of all, I want to pay my bills and be able to give money generously, right? Like those are goals. But
Yeah.
I really want to get to the point where I have enough wealth that I can live off of 10% of what I make and tithe the other 90%. And to me, a tithe is not just like, giving to stuff that brings me spiritual nourishment, which of course that's part of it. But like, it's also like mutual aid and redistribution and like interrupting capitalism, because like, if you have money flowing to you and you're a river, not a reservoir, you're pushing it out into the places that where you want to go, and using your values. And I think it's important to make generous people wealthy. And so like, if you're starting somewhere, like I'll say this, I started a small product-based business. For those of you who've been listening and know me for a long time, I had a tea business for a minute where I was doing Reiki infused teas. I still love it and I love the idea, but I'll tell you, starting a small product-based consumable business has so many obstacles, and it was just one thing after another. And if I had a coach at the time to help me like navigate that, like even not in the cannabis space, but like just having someone who just knows some shit, like,
Oh yeah.
right? Like there's just and packaging was more than half of my cost. Like I couldn't believe actual tea cost less than the packaging.
Yeah.
So I was like fondly looking at these English tea companies with their fancy like tins that are specific to them. I'm like, I know how much those tins cost.
Yep. And then there's distribution costs, and there's shelving and getting it on the right place on the shelf, and planograms, and there's a lot of nuance to stuff, and and it's great. That's what I've reached in my life too, is I've done a lot of this stuff, and I want to help people skip a few of those hard steps. Or maybe you think, oh, I'm going to start a product line, and instead it turns into an educational support or an accessory line to something, along the way. As you flesh out that concept, you actually come up with something else. But it's always good. It's always good to find someone you trust to talk with. And I don't know, I have people of a variety of ages that I talk to monthly or quarterly to keep different perspectives coming my way and keep me in check, because the majority of my experience was in the traditional world. And though I know I don't want to, that I don't want to repeat that, when stress hits, when, there's different points, you can fall back into those old habits of, oh, I know what we got to do to be successful. And it's like, no, take a step back and listen to the guidance. And I guess that's, that comes with age and wisdom too, is knowing to listen.
And humility, knowing like, I think like everything, if you can have a humble confidence, like I think that's like super important. And also like knowing that you don't know everything. Like I would never go to a coach who wasn't also being coached. I would never go to a therapist who wasn't also in therapy. Like I think, and by the way, normalize therapy, like going to the gym. I'm just going to say that. I like try to really hammer that home in this podcast. It's just like doing your reps. It's like it's like I can open my steam pipe once a week and just let it all go and examine the things that I need to examine. And then, I'm a big fan of coaching, mentorship, and therapy.
Yes. Me too.
Beth, I want to talk to you about your history, because you've had an amazing life, and I really want you to share your drag king story, because I was a drag king too in the aughts in Philadelphia, but you were a drag king in like Denver before like the neo drag movement even started. So tell me all about it.
It was such a fun time. It started with a friend of mine at the time. And I was just feeling down about something. And to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what, but I know there was like this down kind of thing. But God, she was just a funny entertainer, performer, human. And this was the 1990s. So, pronouns, that there was a lot of things different in the Gen X, right? Okay. So I just want to be real clear that like the language was different. And the thought process was very different in the 90s, when a lesbian wanted to be a butch and was okay if she passed as a man. And I want to make sure, like I said, just so that people recognize we have made a lot of forward momentum on our language and where a human can be with their gender identity. So my friend who was a butch, man, I just want to perform. I just want to perform and have a good time. So I was like, why not? You know, and I managed one drag king just as a friend. And as always happens with my brain, I went, oh, there's something here. There's something here. And what I realized was, and you'll understand this being in drag, 99.99999% of drag queen shows start close to 2 hours late.
Yes.
Well, what do you do for that hour or two when everybody's already there, but they, right? So I filled the niche with anybody who wanted to be a drag king. And we just figured it out as we went. And it was a vaudeville troupe of, it started out like the hardcore four. There was four from the start that we just were committed to it. And I approached a mutual friend that's since become a best friend, but a mutual friend at the time, and said, okay, I really want to do a drag king, just a drag king show at your club, not an opener, not a, you know, I just want these couple of drag kings to perform. And she said, well, Wednesday night's my slowest night. I don't have anything going on. If you'll take that night, no problem. I would say by a couple months later, Wednesday night was busier than Saturday and Friday nights.
Hey.
We had MTV out there seeing what was going on. Maury Povich, people got flown out to be on Maury Povich about what is a drag king. You know, and in the moment, you don't again, revolutionary. In the moment, I didn't think starting a drag king troupe that traveled to different bars, traveled to different things, self-sufficient. I kind of have a theme in my life, but they wanted to do this for a living. So most of them either had a part-time job or they did this for a living because we booked enough clubs and stuff. And there's a book being written right now because the whole process was very intriguing to me. There is a process someone goes through that becomes a professional drag king, that is interesting. I watched women do things that we don't like men to do, and have to point out, just because you're packing and a mustache on, please don't go up and grind on people without permission. Do you like that? Like, it was interesting. This persona of, and they're women. But the persona, all of a sudden, the music and everything else, those heteronormative male feelings and the bravado and all the machismo would start to happen. And it was almost like we laughed. It was almost like taking them through puberty then, of now we want you to be gentlemen, you know? And this is how we act when we perform. This is how, you know, it was really interesting. And some people, it was really just a fun side thing. Some people adopted the lifestyle. We didn't necessarily call it trans back then, but they adopted the lifestyle of being a drag king. Others, it was performance art, but it was so wonderful. I mean, it was just a wonderful, fun time in my life. And Tina and the Zoo Kings, it was Zoo Denver on 60 South Broadway. So if anybody's ever been, and we had Bunny from New York come perform. I can't even remember. We had a couple of people that heard about us and would come perform with us, and all the videos and everything are with the person writing the book. But yeah, we've saved everything. So someday there will be a book. We've got VHS videos of performances. We were the first drag kings to perform at Gay Pride in Denver. There had never been drag kings. We had drag mothers that helped us. So there was a whole subculture that kind of formed for about 2 years. It still goes on. I mean, they still perform, and there's a lot of performers out there. And then, yeah, we inspired many other people around the country to really get into it more. And I don't know, I love a drag show, drag queen, drag kings, vaudeville, comedy. I love a drag show. And every once in a while I'd put some drag on. Usually I was the MC or the manager, but I would throw a mustache on and look like my young dad. And
it was very jarring to me when I was in the midst of my drag career, like kind of early on. I went to my Grammy's funeral and I saw my Uncle Mike for the first time as an adult. And I was like, oh my God, he looks like me in drag. Like same mustache and everything. Just like I went out and like my vision for my mustache as a drag king was like this long handlebar situation, which I had to go to a costume store to get. And I look just like my Uncle Mike. It is crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But it was like, you know, drag is so amazing. And I want to highlight this. It's amazing how the patriarchy just lives in our brain and you have to unroot it. Like that's the revolution, is just like going through and finding all these limiting beliefs and all these ideas of like, what does masculinity need to be? I'm really into like a tender masculinity, something that's like strong, but like is here for good and for protection and for, you know, like, I mean, being gentlemen. I mean, Lenny Breedlove talked about this all the time, like doing like a class for butches at the time, like to do like a class about being a gentleman, you know, and like just understanding how to embody
soft butch.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like soft butch, like gender presentation. It's just about a softness to the way you express your masculinity without needing to be a colonizer, you know, or an oppressor. And like, and it's so, because we're unfortunately, I think our media and our parenting and all of it, just in our schools, our systems, just like teach us that there's this one right way to be a man, and like teach us about like normalizing colonialism and violence. But like, if you think about it, just really pause and think, like for 400 years, this land has been occupied from people who have inhabited it peacefully for 15,000 years. Like that's such an epic amount of time to steward land and like steward the resources. The earth gave us everything for free, and we just came in violently, took it over, and then now like are fucking it up and created like money, jobs, and bills, right? Like whereas like you could literally live off the land. Not that that's, I think we can have a hybrid niceness. Like you can have a Korean day spa and live in harmony with the land.
No, absolutely. And that's the shame of it, is we've gotten so far off track that the basics sound crazy. Live off the land. What are you, some hippie? Well, no, I'm a human. I haven't, my system, natural fruits, natural, like, no, actually and I'm like you said, people get this image and it's like, no, we can combine things, you can live off the land and still live comfortably. In fact, a lot better when we don't have plastics and trash and I mean, there is a better way of living. I think we just need to we do need to use capitalism. And I just bluntly say that. We may not want to, but that is the accepted system, because getting deep, money has no value unless we give it to it. So we have all agreed at this point in time, we are giving money back value. Get into crypto. But anyway, we are giving it value. So we do have to use that system to move forward.
And tell me about crypto. You said get into crypto.
Oh, I love crypto. I think that's one of the most disruptive things you can do, is be a small investor of $5 to $20 a month and just start getting your feet wet in crypto to understand where we're going. Because again, and this is my opinion, just my opinion, what I've learned from my amazing nephew, who's in his late 20s, is the false premise of money having value. Well, we haven't used the gold standard or based money on anything other than a private bank called the Fed and the IMF. So it's based on nothing except what we make up. Where crypto is actually finite. It is based on, way above my head to explain in detail, but it is based on a finite system. It's based on energy. It's based on what can be produced. And it actually does have a different style, finite understanding. It's just decentralized. And as soon as you say decentralized, that's where the traditional greedy capitalists go, no, how do I control decentralized? You don't, we don't want you to.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the real turning point for all of this is legalization. I've accepted. I wanted decriminalization. A plant doesn't need to be legalized, but in our society, we've agreed it does. To me, that seems beyond ridiculous that I have to ask, can this plant be legal? But, you know, so it's all those things that we just need to use the system, turn it on its ear, you know, just turn it around and take it. And they don't understand. I watch, you know, like when Janet Yellen says something about crypto, that's when it goes up. Or now, oh my goodness, it's crashing, it's crashing. Yeah, that thing that was worth a penny is only worth $49,000 today. Yeah, that's a crash. I mean, they just don't get it. And I'm okay with that. I just want to be open to the younger generation, keep teaching me because I want to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that surrounding yourself with the people of multiple ages is really good for you. For me,
Yes.
I've learned so much. Like, my mentor is 29 years old. Like, I just
Love it.
learned so much from people who are young that
Yeah.
I think it keeps me young.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. Beth, tell me, where did you grow up and tell me your coming out story?
I grew up in Pennsylvania, and small town Pennsylvania, town called Macungie. I think Pennsylvania, Dutch, Amish country, yes. So real small high school, like 80 some kids graduating high school. 1980s graduation in high school, so there was no coming out. It did not happen in redneck Pennsylvania in the 80s. You did not come out.
I didn't come out, and I went to high school in the 90s in the suburbs of San Francisco. So it was just not an environment for coming out.
It wasn't. And thankfully more and more areas are. I know there's still areas that aren't, and I recognize that. And I grew up in one that wasn't. It was very traditional German, Pennsylvania Deutsch. I mean, boom, boom, boom. This is just this is the way it is. College started to open my eyes a little bit. And I would say probably by my senior year, I kind of knew, but again, there's so much, back then there was just so much society and small town and, oh, well, maybe you're just in college experimenting, you know, there really wasn't an invitation to be yourself. And my friends would have been open in college. They're all amazing still to this day. You know, it's not that. It was just an inner struggle that my coming out story is about getting sober. I could fool around with boys when I was drunk, and I had a sponsor who I later developed a very long relationship with. But I had a sponsor that said, "Okay, you're sober. I dare you to go pick up a dude and just have sex with him." And I'm like, "Dare me?" I mean, you know my personality now. You can only imagine when I'm in my early 20s. Dare me? All right. I had longer hair, looked a little bit more feminine. Yeah, I couldn't do it. I was like, what is wrong with me? This is all wrong. So getting sober, I couldn't fake it anymore. I just could not fake it anymore. And that's how I came out, was when I got sober and my sponsor knew, and we did what you're not supposed to do, but fell in love. You know, it happens.
It does.
And that's a whole nother podcast, because that's the woman that I opened the tattoo body art shop with. I have chosen family with to this day. Anyway, but yes, my coming out story really was sobriety. It was what, early 90s. Just getting sober. It was like, nope, this ain't right. And from there, it's just never stopped. Actually, from there, I will say my coming out story, there was still a lot of things you were brought up and believed and taught. So My first official full-on gold star lesbian I was with is my wife. Every other woman that I've had long-term relationships with or relationship with was bi or leaning more toward the straight side. So it, again, another awakening was, oh, I'm a lesbian. You know, but it's interesting. I have no regrets. My journey has been wonderful. I am friends with every lover I've ever had. I mean, I have had a really, really wonderful life. You know, still a lot more to go, but yeah, I was thinking about that, getting ready for this of, wow, I'm starting this business. I'm going to be talking about, you know, stuff because we're sisters. And I went, man, I've got people I've known for 30, 40 years still in my life, or 30 years. Yeah, still in my life. From those days. And it's just a lot of good, fun stuff. But I have always tried to be a human that'll at least be accountable when I'm not perfect. And I think that's why I'm still friends with everybody is, you know, I have a belief if you love someone at one point, you probably still have feelings of some sort. And it's just a matter of if both those people can reach a point of friendship. And that's not always possible. I understand that. I feel really, really lucky that I could call up anyone that I've been with and same thing. They need anything or want to talk or whatever, that there's that friendship there. Didn't happen overnight. You know, everything's a process. That's why I love watching your stuff. You know, self-care, mourning, moving on from relationships, new relationships. We talk about it in a podcast like it's a 5-minute, 10-minute thing, but it's months, years, sometimes for those processes. But they're worth it. I don't know. You learn about yourself, even if you don't repair the relationship.
Yeah, it's so, I just want to point out too, like you said, in sobriety, you realize the truth of your sexuality, and the same, and you also said that about like going to the beach, you just kind of get quiet and then you can hear the truth. And I think that's really something a lot of people are just afraid of. And that's like where addictive behaviors come in, and like, you know, in work addiction, right? Like compulsively working or compulsively doing anything. So many things can be addictions, right? And just allowing yourself some clarity, allowing yourself some space, allowing yourself just to reveal the truth of yourself. And the more you get accepting and loving of yourself, the more you can be accepting and loving of other people. And like that's how you maintain long-term relationships, is like being willing to grow. And honestly, it speaks to your ability to weather conflict, that you're able to transition relationships from like romantic to some level of platonic. But I still think there's a spectrum of intimacy that we get to have as people, and we really discount the intimacies of our friendships. And you get to have a friendship, and I say get to because there's a lot of people whose friendships have released, right, of my choice or their choice, but like have been released. But plenty of people are still in my life who are like 20, I mean, I'm only 42, so like 20-year friendships, right? But still, like I'm still friends with like people I performed drag with like 20 years ago. And it's so rad to like get to just know these humans and see them grow, and like and just have that. So I love that.
And vice versa. I mean, like when I say 30 years, and I'm sure you feel the same way when you look back, it's like, you know, people meet me now, right? And they get this perspective or whatever. But when I'm talking to somebody, you know, that I've known for 20, 30 years, and they're like, so you still don't drink? It's like, oh my goodness, I haven't touched, I don't remember the last time I drank. Oh, you still get stoned. Oh yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's interesting when you find people that they have this persona, and you have, I don't like to say change, grown. I really believe we grow. I think that everything we experience and accept and learn from, it creates growth. I don't like to say I changed. I grew.
Yeah. Same actually. I mean, I'm constantly changing every moon cycle, full moon, new moon. I'm looking at what am I releasing, what do I need to level up in, how do I need to right? But like constantly just in the evolution of who I am, but your spirit stays the same. And I think honestly all the changing I do just allows my spirit to shine more and more. That's really my goal. And, and honestly, a lot of that is from simplicity. One of my biggest gifts from this pandemic is the ability to simplify my life and commit to routines. And then still, because I know how important and healing human connection is for me, I've prioritized connecting with people and reaching out and like making that part of my life digitally in this time, but like without all the bullshit of like having to run around to a bunch of different things, or even you know, touring with my business, which was honestly, for my aerobics business, it was the best thing I did to seed long-term client relationships, because now probably about a third of my regulars on my Zoom classes are people that I picked up on the road, you know, like, so, and then they're friends, right? And like, that's how it kind of grows, I think, the most effectively. Like, if I can get you in the door once, like, you know what this is about. And if it's for you, you're going to keep coming back. And so anyway, it's great to just connect with people who understand about growth and growing and leveling up. Okay, really want to talk about this, because when we first met, you had, for folks who are watching this on the YouTube, you can see Beth's like magic camera thing that has the magic like logo hanging right there. For me, I just have portraits of my cat that other people paint for me. And so I want to talk about the Grateful Dead, because that's my first impression of you with like dancing bears. And I was just getting into the Dead at that time. And I was like, because the Dead is my quarantine thing. It's my passion. So tell me how you got into the Grateful Dead, and like all of your experience, like going to concerts and doing a lot of drugs.
I am a deadhead for sure. You know, a little bit in high school, but really it was college. It was the experience. And I'm of Gen X deadhead, which means I'm the last generation to have gone to concerts with Jerry and no cell phones. That's how I break it off. There's deadheads that take their cell phones to shows. I'm the generation before that. I had an amazing, the whole Dead and psychedelic experience really, it's going to sound cliche, was mind expanding in college. To travel with friends and experiences that we had from, you know, the goofy parking lot experiences of hanging out and having peanut butter sandwiches, and then twirling and dancing, traveling to, honestly, you know, if you're into psychedelics, you know, we had 10 of us. We were the Marijuana gang, and we would trip and go to shows, or trip and go hiking together and have experiences. And one of the craziest things we did in college that I came up with, and we had a great time with it, is I tend to wake up early. So I would go around, and they'd be called 6 a.m. drops. And I just go while everybody was sleeping and drop something on their tongue. And if you woke up tripping, you knew to come to my house, and we'd go off on an adventure. So these were very different times back in the late 80s, early 90s in college. And
I just want to say to anybody out there, don't do that to your friends unless they consent.
Oh yeah, no. We know a lot more about psychedelics now. This is all, I like to say, if you haven't seen the movie Class Action Park, you don't understand Gen X. We survived. Okay. Now there's a lot more education out there. But no, really, you know, a couple of years worth of traveling shows, and the music itself spoke to me. I mean, to this day, Ripple is something that'll get me through. The poetry. Oh my God. Yes. And the camaraderie. That's where I first learned camaraderie that you can't explain, and bonding that you can't explain. And when you experience psychedelics, you do accept and experience that there's, you know, a non-physical world out there. And I share that because I am not a religious person. I am an energy karma person. I'm not really someone that believes in a higher conscience. I'm someone that does believe in energy, though. And that came from those times, the music, you know, those experiences. I would say I went from being an atheist to someone that goes, okay, there's a lot of really amazing fountains not made by the hands of men.
Yes.
In this world. And, you know, so it really was mind expanding that way, I think. And then, after college, it kind of dies down. I mean, I hit a couple of shows, but life takes over. But the music, and you see, I mean, almost every Sunday, it's still a Grateful Dead time for me. It takes me back. And what I miss the most is the feeling you get at festivals. I was just talking to somebody else. There is an energy. Oh, what was you when you're dancing?
Yes.
At Togativity? It was the closest I've felt to that. And we were talking about when you're at a festival, there's the shared energy. And I was like, wow, as close as you could possibly do it virtually, right? It was feeling that way when we were dancing and I know that's a lot of what it brings up in me and what I want to share, but I don't know, it's fun music and poetry that brings people together. And it's hard to explain being a deadhead. But it's a family thing. And it's a unique understanding of life too, I think, because people get a stereotype and they don't realize, Jerry Garcia and them, they love shooting guns, not what you would expect from a hippie. But I mean, they started out as the Warlocks. The Hells Angels were at Deadhead shows. I mean, it's a very interesting culture that doesn't fit the stereotype that many think. And I guess the other thing I get a kick out of now is I see some of my old Deadhead friends and I have one that has a Jesus bus that's all Deadhead, and they travel around and teach the word of Jesus through Grateful Dead music. I love it. It's like teaching love through, you know what I mean? And there's other, I don't know. It's just, it's a neat subculture that I don't know if we'll ever be able to feel it the way it was then. And now I sound like that old person, but before cell phones, but there was something about non-digital connection that happens when you're a deadhead. You would run into someone you hadn't seen in 2 years at a show, but you felt it, you knew it, bam, across the crowd, you were there. Yeah, that non-digital human connection. I don't know how we balance or get some of that back. I miss that. I miss the happenstance circumstance. And I know with the pandemic, everything even has to be more planned now. Can I come visit you? Have you been vaccinated? What are your rules? What are this? I really, really, now that I'm talking to you, what I miss the most out of that whole Deadhead experience is the non-digital kismet happenstance human interactions that were felt. You could feel them and make them happen. It wasn't, where are you? I'm here, look at me. It's, Bevan's here somewhere at the show. I know it. I mean, you would have those feelings. And then, look, I told you, there she is, stuff like that.
I mean, listen, that hasn't happened to me in the pandemic, but I will say, even in a digital world, I've had lots of those experiences where, like, you just show up somewhere and there's this person, right? And I used to go to a feminist festival. It's where I met Lisa, and it had no cell reception. So it was like, got this analog experience for like a week at a time. You just be camping and 6,000 people in the woods, like you just find each other, and you never know who's going to show up. And I think that magic is still available. And I think, honestly, something that has really been cool in this time is like watching Dead and Company shows, like, because it's interesting because they used to, Grateful Dead was really innovative in terms of copyleft, because they just let people come in and bootleg their shows. And that kind of helped, I think, 10x how big of an impact they had on the world, because more people got into the Dead because of all these bootleg shows. And so I thought that was really, and it was mostly, I watched A Long Strange Trip on Amazon. It's like 2017 documentary. It's so good. If anybody out there is curious about the Dead or getting into the Dead, you have to watch this thing. I've watched it like 3 times. I'll watch it again. Like, I get something new every time. And I think there is some, and I've talked about this on the podcast actually a lot, about the Christ consciousness and like this heart-led, people-led sort of interaction, where it's not about Christianity or hegemony. It's about like literally the teaching of Christ about connecting and loving people for who they are. And I think there's a lot of that in the Dead. I totally get that. And it's not even intentional. It's just like they came together using psychedelics to like melt away the ego and came together to create something that was purely spirit. And I will say, I'm like dying to know what happened with the dead when they went to Egypt together, because they like kind of gloss over this, but they tell a story of like how everything changed once they understood more what they were doing once they went to Egypt together. And I'm like dying to find out.
So the story I heard, this is how it goes when you're a deadhead. The story I heard,
stories. This is what I want.
The story I heard was they took more. They had snuck in psychedelics to Egypt, right? But highly illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And the story goes that they were worried about getting busted, so they took them all before they went on stage. And that they apparently had like an incredible mystical experience while they were performing at the pyramids that supposedly changed their view of how they saw and felt everything. And I believe that because there's, many of us, that's a theme. I mean, I could tell you there was a specific trip that I took that really like opened me up to Buddhism and yin yang. And I can remember just feeling, okay, I get it. I get the whole connection. And it's hard to explain. It's like, I get the whole connection. I can see what the struggles in my life are going to be. I could see this. I could see this. I'm okay. I know we're going to go through it. But you get an understanding of connectedness. And I think for them, that story is that it was, one of those kind of ayahuasca experiences, that universal connection, the whole universe kind of thing happened for them, which I could see. I mean, man, you get up to the music and you're jamming and you got those vibrations going on, and that's a whole nother theory. I mean, you get musical vibrations with pyramids. Who knows? I mean, vibrations play a very, very, very important role in that Egyptian history that we do not understand yet. So,
yeah. Oh my goodness. Thanks for that story. So this is the best part about connecting with people who've been into the dead for a long time. Like, you hear the things that kind of fill in the gaps and help understand.
Yeah, and they're all stories. You never know. But one of the things too that, it's always interesting to look back on history. And I like to remind people that, like not only did the dead tour Egypt, but, they drove a bus around Iran. Wow. They drove through the Middle East, and there are pictures of the Grateful Dead with women in colleges in Iran. I mean, there's a whole history that we can't, I don't know. And like I said, I'm using the dead for it, but there's a whole history that we sometimes forget. It's not that long ago. There's been a lot of things that changed in a not okay way in just the past 30, 40 years. And it's time to correct that.
Yeah.
Because you can't drive a bus around the Middle East, and let alone the further bus, you know what I mean? And they went around the world. We should be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to get back to a time where anybody can get in their bus, throw it on a boat or a ferry, and you should be able to travel anywhere around the world, because humans are humans are humans. It's not the humans in the Middle East that there's any issues with. It's this power structure. It's these few folks that, few as far as percentage, but yeah. No, we need totally to remember true. We were connected. We were all connected.
And our borders are made up. These are just like, yes. I was on the Syria, Israel border. I haven't been hardly anywhere, but I have been to Israel and Syria, and like watching birds fly across the border and like bees buzzing around, and they don't give a fuck. Like cats, like I was in the old city of Jerusalem, and there's this cat that like, there's this Catholic part, and then there's this like Jewish part, and then a Muslim part, right? The cats do not give any fucks. And I had the most spiritual experience. Like, I was in the place where Jesus apparently like was laid out. It's like a Catholic church now. I touched a stone, right? But I felt the most mystical connection with this like black and white cat that like I was giving Reiki to, like outside of the church. Like, I was like, cats get it. And like, and people just make up these ideas and these categories out of fear, and resource hoarding. And it's time to dissolve borders. It's time to dissolve all notion of separation and just allow us to just create a new level of humanity, Age of Aquarius.
Well, and again, I mean, even the state borders, it is ridiculous that You know, I'm in Oregon where everything's decriminalized. Oh, the sky didn't fall, by the way, folks. The sky did not fall. I just really want to let everybody know. We decriminalized everything and the sky didn't fall. But now if I cross a certain border, there's still states that if they find a seed of my cannabis, I could be going to prison. It's insane. It is literally insane. And enough is enough is enough. And I think it's, you know, I think part of it too, and that's why I want to really support millennials, Gen Zs, Alpha, whatever you want to call yourselves. Those of you coming up, you know, I want to remind you, history is we weren't always like this. We've always needed to grow forward, but we really went off track in the 90s, in my opinion. That, I mean, and that's what I'm going to say, because I'm 52, right? So that's where I own my biases. I always own my biases, but our country went off track in the 1930s, and then worldwide we went off track in the 90s, in my opinion. And it's time to revisit the 1930s agricultural human process and interactions and businesses. And just do it that way. We really went off track in the 30s when we went plastics and oil and systemic racism around our plant culture.
So true.
Yeah.
Beth, how can people find you in the world?
The easiest way to find me is Hoi Magic, HOIMAGIC.com, HoiMagic.com. That'll get you to myself, my team for Hoi Polloi. Instagram, I'm Hemp Huntress. You know, most anywhere else, I'm Hemp Huntress. So from TikTok to Facebook to Instagram, Hemp Huntress. And then my company and my crew and my team, Heather, Austin, and Amy, that we would love to meet and help you out, is HoiPolloiAdvisors.com, or like I said, a little bit easier to remember, HoiMagic.com, because the magic happens when we all meet.
Yes. Oh, that's a good little tiny URL. And I just want to give a pitch for following Beth, both full of delights, but also lots of fun merch and discount codes. Like, I'm actually excited. I'm glad you mentioned the St. Bernard folks, because I keep meaning to buy that CBD gum. And like, so there's just so many connections you have, because you're just, I mean, you're starting a new business, but you've been in this industry for so long that you have so many great connections, and you love to share the plant. So definitely worth a follow and a connection. And also, if you out there feel connected to Beth, hit her up. She will totally connect with you and and help you understand if like what you have going on is a good fit for Hoi Magic, because I think, I mean, I can't say this enough. I just want to really land this. If you're an entrepreneur, you need help more than you think. And I tried so hard to start a product-based business with no help and no capital. And I would have been better served with my resources to have had help. And so I can say that as like, and I have a lot of help now.
One-stop startup team, right? One-stop startup team, because every entrepreneur wears too many hats. Let us wear a few of the hats for you to help you get started and help you be able to wear those hats. We get it. We really, really do. We get it.
Oh, so good. Thank you so much, Beth, for sharing, for being here and just being you in the world. I'm so glad to be part of this revolution with you. And I'm super hoping to get you looped into some of our Glowing Goddess getaways this year. Which are like both a mix of, they're all going to be a digital component. And then there's like 3 in-person ones, but like at least the digital stuff, you're there with your camera. It's, what is it? It's sparkocam.com.
The sparkocam.com is a nice song.
And also I'm going to put in the links for this note, for this episode, your playlist of Grateful Dead songs. So
cool.
It's good. It's a good list. And also Ripple's one of my faves. And so I love that you love Ripple. I can't wait to have a fountain that has that quote, "Let it be known there's a fountain not made by the hands of men," and just like have that swirl in the middle. You know, may I be fountain rich. Anyway.
Well, soon, and my hope is that soon you and I get to twirl together in person.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm so excited. So signing off. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.